Welcome back to Bernama. Today with me, Tamina Kaushi, and now I have in the hot seat with me Amelia Shariff and Ameer Fahmi Ishak. Now, Amelia is the CEO of the Malaysian Institute for Debate and Public Speaking, or the MIDP, while Ameer is the champion of the recent Malaysian National University's Debating Championship. A bit of a mouthful there, but MNUDC 2019. And we're going to be speaking a little bit about developing a culture of intellectual discourse amongst Malaysian youth via using debating as the main platform. Interesting conversation. How are you guys today?
Very good. Thank you for having us.
All right. So to get the ball rolling, tell me a little bit about MNUDC 2019 itself and MIDP's role in organizing this, Amelia.
So MNUDC 2019 is actually the first time that we're hosting a national level competition in the Asian parliamentary format. So usually the national level competition is hosted by the ministry.
I see.
But what MIDP does is that we try to bring all the schools together to compete at the same platform. So under the ministry previously, all the competitions are divided based on the type of schools that they are from. So maybe sekolah berasrama penuh or like premier schools, and so they all have like different types.
It's all categorized.
Yes.
Understood.
So what we've done is that we bring them together. So similarly for MNUDC, it's actually a platform where we bring all of the universities together, public, private, international. As long as they're in Malaysia, we put them together on a platform so that we can actually have the best team that we can call the national champion.
Understood. So Ameer, I'll move into you to tell us a little bit more about what is the ASEAN parliamentarian format when it comes to debating, because you've actually just been through the experience.
So there are two major formats that Malaysia uses. One is the British parliamentary, which is a 2 versus 2 versus 2 versus 2. It's a bit complicated, a lot of strategy involved there. But the Asian parliamentary format is just a 3-on-3. So there's just two teams in one debate, one supporting and one opposing.
Right, so 3-on-3, right. So there were over 180 participants in this most recent round, which was held from 19 to 21st April, happening at Sunway University. Well, what was it like on a participant level for you? Was it pretty intense? Was the competition intimidating? How did you guys prepare for it?
I feel that in terms of the competition, it was very intense. But because this isn't our... When we go to debate tournaments, we see our friends, and we've been against them before in other open tournaments. So it's just a gathering of friends who know each other, and it's a lot of fun at the end, so you don't get as nervous.
On the management side of things, what's it like organizing such a large-scale event as well, getting together almost 200 participants?
MNUDC is large, but it is... it's not bad for us because, first of all, it's university students, so they're slightly easier to manage.
Okay.
But MIDP is also have a lot of experience in organizing international competition with 2,000 plus participants. So we're okay in terms of the management side. It's just making sure that rounds start on time and the debaters get there on time and things like that.
Okay, now into the nitty-gritty though. Let's talk about debating itself and why it's important, and why MIDP has also made it part of its agenda to promote debating, particularly for the youth in the country.
Debating is very important, not just in terms of a personal development of an individual, but also in terms of making sure that the next generation is the kind of generation that can speak up. And when I say speak up, I personally believe that the ability to speak up and communicate is the basis of everything. For example, when you talk about children being abused or sexually harassed, they need to speak up. Or when you talk about seeing something that happens that you think is wrong, that you want to whistleblow, or you want to, lodge a complaint, you need to know how to speak up. So for me, debating goes to the very core of your existence as an individual, to interact with those around you, and to also make sure that you can deliver everything that you should be delivering as a citizen, as a responsible member of society. So when we look at debating, it's not just about being argumentative. No.
Right. So that is often the stereotype associated with debaters, that they're very argumentative, they're very loud, but it's all actually about making a clear point.
Yes.
Now, how has debating taught you to do that, Ameer?
I think a large chunk of debating is about persuasion and being able to persuade people in a organized manner.
Okay,
so
that's
it's like being able to tell people what you feel and have them understand what you feel is something that's very important, not only in terms of debating, but also in your day-to-day life, like trying to persuade your parents to let you go out,
Right,
all that
yeah, the
kind of stuff,
nitty-gritty
yeah.
kind of stuff, right? So, but how has debating impacted you and your teammates as well? Both positives and maybe even some things that were a kind of self-realization journey. Was there something that really stood out to you from the time you began debating from before you started debating?
I think what debate did for me personally is it really opened up my mind, because in debates you get a topic but you don't know whether you're going to be the team supporting that topic or the team opposing that topic. So in preparation for that, you have to be able to see both sides of that particular topic. And that applying in real life is that when you see someone having their own concerns about society or whatever issues that they're going through, maybe you don't relate to them, but you respect their opinion. Like you can see where they're coming from.
Oh yes, and I actually see how this always cues into the larger political conversations that we're having, not just in Malaysia but globally. So when we talk about politics, we talk about current affairs, we also talk about expressing ourselves carefully. There's also the terminology that's come into trend globally, hate speech. Now, what is the debater's perspective on this?
Okay, simple talk, hate speech is just not cool. I think. And when you communicate, especially with people younger than you, like when we deal with students, when we deal with like high school and like children in
Exactly,
general,
you're engaging at a very young level.
It's very important to tell them, like, to first of all, you gotta like unpack all of these things. So if you want to communicate, what are the etiquette of conversation? What are the etiquettes of existing in a personal space, but also in a shared space where it is not just about you, but your words impact other people. I always tell those younger than me when they started debating that they have to remember a good debater don't argue all the time. You argue when you need to. So once they understand that concept and they know that the power that their voice carry, they'll be a bit more careful before they say something, because they realize whatever they say impact another person.
That's right, absolutely. So when you talk about hate speech, that is what comes to the fore. Now, when you're speaking about debating about topics that you don't necessarily agree with, but let's say you're just given this and on the very simple end of the scale, you're a non-smoker, you're passionately against it, but you have to defend the topic. So how do you wrap your head around that? And how do you sort of remove yourself from the ethics of it and focus on building your skills as a debater? Ameer.
I think that it's generally difficult to argue for things that you don't personally believe in. But it happens, right? In competitions, especially in competitive debating, where the objective isn't necessarily like you wanting to forward anything. It's just you want to win, basically.
That's right.
You have to do things. You got to do what you got to do.
Just make the strongest point, right?
Yeah, just make the strongest point. After that, oftentimes we have a disclaimer where the opinions or the things that we say in debates are not our own opinions, and that applies in most debates.
But at the bottom of it, it's about strategy, right? So you want to defend something and you don't believe in that thing, but you got to do a bit of a stakeholder analysis and look at the demographic on the ground. What kind of people would want to support this, and why do you believe in those things? Because as much as you don't share the sentiments, those sentiments are real because they exist. So you gotta deal with that in a way that is believable and in a way that is real. So debates involve a lot of assumptions, and when you make those assumptions, it has to be as sensitive to the people on the ground. So it doesn't matter you don't believe in it, but people are impacted by this topic. And when you talk on behalf of these people, what is the best strategy and what is the best position to take so that you minimize the harms that will eventually be caused once you allow or disallow something?
That's also right, because at that point in time, you are actually the juncture that is being the mouthpiece for whatever that opinion is.
Yes.
Now, moving into inculcating a culture for not just debate, but intellectual discourse among Malaysian youth, but it actually has to start a lot earlier. It's not like you go into university and suddenly, bam, the switch is turned on. So tell us a little bit about what MIDP has been doing with engaging student-led clubs in particular to start them off early on this journey of debating.
Okay, MIDP is an educational institution, so we don't just focus on debating and public speaking, but we do a lot more than that. So we have things like poetry and drama and creative expression and all of that. But the basis of all of this is always three things: critical thinking, creative thinking, and communication skills. So when you talk about developing this at a very young age, you have to break them down into like different types of modules, because at our center we have classes for kids as young as 7 years old.
Wow. And how well are those classes attended, if I may ask?
We have 2 classes right now.
Okay.
And every year the students change because we graduate them to a higher class once they complete that program. So when we teach this age group, it has to be broken down to like very, very smaller modules, but we don't, for lack of a better word, make it...
You don't dumb it down.
We don't dumb it down.
Right.
Yes.
Brilliant.
So if I want to talk to them about equality and equity, I talk to them about equality and equity. What are the principles of the law? But the way that I teach them about those things is very activity-based. You know,
and it
like
would be using the language that they're familiar with.
Correct.
Right. So it's never about dumbing down, but it's also about promoting towards a wider goal. And the wider goal, and I think you actually touched on that earlier on, Emellia, where you said that it's all about activating and pushing forth young citizens particularly to be able to vocalize.
Yeah.
Now, very soon, in just about, in under 2 weeks, we will be celebrating the first year of Pakatan Harapan as the new government in power in Malaysia. This has also been the dawn of a different type of democracy being experienced, particularly by young Malaysians. What are your hopes that young Malaysians will be able to add to this discourse, particularly those who are skilled in public speaking, like yourself as well, Ameer?
I think that when the realization that a lot of people got after we changed the government was that, oh, it's possible that we can do this, that we can tell people what we want, and there are people who will want to listen. And if they refuse to listen, since we've already changed governments in the past, it's something that we can do like again. Right, and I think that that's something that allowed a lot of the avenue, which also probably how debating got a lot more traction in the past year.
Yeah, it also has, definitely.
Yeah, because people want to be able to, now that they know that people will be listening to them, they want to be able to show that, or present their opinions in a way that people would understand.
I think generally I just want to move from this ageist culture where if you're young, you don't know enough, because I think a lot of the times the opinions of people who are a lot younger and less experienced are not taken seriously, because what do you know? What, you just graduated? You just finished school? Have you even worked? Do you have work experience? So I think this kind of attack are personal, because instead of looking at what I'm saying, the value of my ideas and why I have these kind of concerns, you're literally telling me you have your concerns, but because you don't have that 5 years work experience, these concerns are not that legitimate.
Not valid.
So for me, when I look at people who say these things, they need to know that these are personal attacks and you are discrediting me and discrediting my ideas and moving forward. And I think the Pakatan Harapan government and like the Malaysia Baru can do a lot better in terms of engaging with the young people, but also
actually galvanizing them for their own benefits too, and for the nation's development. Right. So speaking about development, what are some of the future plans in the pipeline for developing debate? And Ameer, how do you and other young people who've also been a part of this primary MNUDC 2019 hope to contribute?
I go first? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
MIDP, so we have 4 core operations. We have training, events, consultancy, and advocacy. So in terms of like this developmental part, our advocacy work, we do a lot of freedom of speech related
Wonderful.
activities.
Very relevant right now, especially in the global atmosphere.
We also do like child protection. We're now looking into like developing a code of conduct for the Malaysian debaters. So all of these things are things that we feel that we can contribute for the development of young individuals, because you want them to speak up, you want them to learn the skills, but then MIDP look at ourselves as like someone who can facilitate that process. So we want to create a space that is safe for them, that they feel protected in, and things like that. I always say this to all the parents who talk to me, that debating or public speaking or just generally being able to speak is not a talent, it's a skill.
That's right.
So
and you work at it.
Yes, so you need to have it. So sometimes if you feel like you're introverted, all the more reasons to learn those skills. So we look at ourselves and our role very seriously in that context. So we provide events, competitions, and all of that, so that they have all this platform to practice.
And Ameer, from your perspective as the recent champion, together with your teammates as well, what are your future aspirations building upon this win?
I think that one thing that I've come to realize, I've been debating for a very long time, since high school, like it's been 8 years. But what I think at this point of becoming the champion now is to build the next generation.
That's right.
Right, and debating, to be honest, is somewhat expensive as well to be a participant and to have that training. So what we do in IIU, also myself and with my friends, we go to schools and we coach schools.
Trying to flatten the structure as well. All right, so brilliant development and involving more of the youth on board. Thank you so much for your time today.
No problem.
Absolutely. So there you have it, a little bit of a highlight on MNUDC 2019, and of course, the Malaysian Institute for Debate and Public Speaking's role within it all in developing intellectual discourse for all youth in Malaysia. I'm Tamina Kalji signing off for Bernama today. We'll see you again next week.